Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Tuesday and the patch notes have been posted, which means it's time for me to break down the top 5 changes of patch 13.10. I'll let you guys know what the biggest changes were and what I think is going to be the most impactful going into the new patch cadence. Now this is the mid-season update. There are a ton of item reworks and changes shipping on this patch, and not very many champion changes shipping on this patch, but definitely you guys will want to stay tuned for this because there is a ton changing for marksmen, assassins, and supports in particular. I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump right into these changes. I do want to start with this very quick comment, which is that this patch is going to be delayed. It will not be coming out on tomorrow, Wednesday, May 17th. It will instead be coming out on the Thursday, May 18th. So don't worry about trying to get in games on the new patch starting tomorrow. It will be on Thursday instead. First up, I want to highlight these champion AP ratios. So Akshan, Callista, Kindred, and Vayne are all getting AP ratios added to various places on their kit. Mostly these are in terms of their utility. So Akshan, for example, his Q is giving him bonus movement speed. That is scaling with ability power, and the shield and dirty fighting is scaling based on his ability power. Now these changes are not aimed at making these champions into AP champions, right? You're not looking at this and saying, yeah, Akshan is an AP champion now. Realistically, these are more aimed at these champions if they have incidental sources of ability power from, let's say, Ginsu's Rage Blade, which has gotten a decent rework on this patch, that they'll feel okay about having the additional ratios to make the AP matter. This isn't intended to be a way for these champions to actually build AP, though more power to you if you find a way to make AP Akshan or AP Callista actually work. Moving on to the number 2 change on this week's patch, I want to talk about the Critical Strike item changes. Now, this is a fancy way of saying the Marksman Mythic item update. Now, to talk really high level about how this is going to work, instead of choosing items based on the available toolbox of mythic items, mobility for Gale Force, survivability for Shield Bow, etc., Marksmen will be choosing items based on what they want their build to do. Infinity Edge, Quick Blades, and Ginsu's Rage Blade have been changed to become mythic items, and they will be joining Gale Force as the remaining mythic item. This means that you will now be able to build these items first or second as your mythic of choice, and then be able to proceed with your build as normal, building whatever flex items or other powerful items that you want, as opposed to the current system where you're kind of forced into mythic plus Infinity Edge or Quick Blades, and then into whatever you might want after that point. Those are the new mythics. The previous 2 items, Immortal Shield Bow and Kraken Slayer, still exist in the game, but they are no longer mythic items. They are still legendary items. Important to note here as well, as a result of Shield Bow becoming a legendary item, Bloodthirster has had its ability reworked. You now gain additional attack damage while you're above 50% health instead of giving you the overshield, because you can build both of them much more easily nowadays because they're both legendaries. Additionally, the Kerchi's Shard line has had a couple of changes. Kerchi's Shard is now more about attack damage than attack speed. So if you're going to be building the full energized build, it's not going to feel as much attack speed, but you will have more attack damage. And importantly to note here as well, Static Shiv is back. Right, they're actually reintroducing it to the game, which I'm quite excited about as well, so the full energized build is going to be returning. Now, I think these changes overall will revitalize marksman build paths, which ideally will help marksmen build how they want to rather than how they have to. As I kind of mentioned before, the former iteration kind of sucked because you had to go mythic, then IE or quick blades, then into flex items. This new system should feel much better. I do feel like these changes will make marksmen the de facto best champs in the game at the expense of everyone else, but I do think at least that this will help bot lane feel better in terms of satisfaction, and I hope it doesn't go the full shebang into making marksmen the only champions that matter. Speaking about item changes here, let's go ahead and talk about the Assassin item changes. Now, there are a couple of swapsies here in terms of mythic items as well. Prowler's Claw is no longer a mythic and has lost its dash. It was doing too much to break the intended counterplay of certain champions like Talon and Rengar, and just in general has not been balanceable. Instead, it has a new passive that's sort of a sudden impact-esque effect, where after you dash, blink, or exit stealth, your next, you gain a bunch of damage after that period of time. And it also has the slowing and the 99% slow and bonus damage auto attack from Duskblade of Drakthar. Duskblade has been reworked a little bit. It no longer has a stealth on the takedown. Instead, it gives you untargetability after takedown. This will have some degree of effect, right? You can, for example, kill somebody and then be able to swiftly reposition or get yourself over a wall to safety, whatever it might happen to be. But it does mean that it will not protect you from towers, and anything that's previously targeted you will still be targeting you. So if Annie pressed Q on you and you get a takedown, you're still eating that Annie Q. Ideally, though, this will help the item feel a little better to play against, and I do think that the new passive on it that allows your spells to deal up to 15% bonus damage is very scary indeed, and will definitely make a champion like Zed feel quite happy with a new Duskblade. Replacing Prowler's Claw in the Mythic slot is Youmuu's Ghostblade, which now has a new passive that gives you basically stacks as you move, and you expend all those stacks when you enter enemy champion combat to give you bonus damage for the next 3 seconds. This, I think, is going to be a very powerful item for roaming assassins, specifically champions like Rengar or Talon, who want to just run you down and murder you, or who are very good at roaming. And so, in general, I'm very excited to see Youmuu's as a mythic. I do think these changes may feel like a power down for assassins right in the short run, but I think overall they are in a much healthier spot, and I think that assassins will still have plenty of tools at their disposal to work with. Moving on to the fourth thing I wanted to talk about on this patch, which is the support item changes, which there are a ton of overhauls here. The TLDR on most of these changes are that the items generally got cheaper, but lost some stats or had stats shuffled around to compensate. This is true for a ton of the items on this list already. Some items gain movement speed, like Ardent Censer and Redemption, to help you keep up with the people you're trying to protect. But the big changes here are, of course, new mythic items and new components. Chalice of Blessing has been added to the game. This is Chalice of Harmony, for those of you who might remember it, and the Lifewell Pendant has also been added to the game as well as a component for tank support items. Importantly, the Echoes of Helia is an item that is being added. This is basically a riff on the old Athene's Unholy Grail, where you will basically heal or shield allies and have a bonus for healing and shielding when you do so, and it will also damage nearby enemies. As a result of this being a new mythic item, Imperial Mandate has been moved down to the legendary tier, which should allow you to build both of these at the same time if you want a more aggressive enchanter build, or you can go for the more traditional heal and shield focus enchanter builds if you so desire. Along those lines, Moonstone Renewer has been reworked. Now, instead of just giving you a passive healing aura, it causes your heals and shields to bounce to nearby targets. Never yourself, but in the middle of team fights, you can heal and shield multiple people at the same time if they're grouped up, which is going to be a quite nice change on this item in particular. And finally, the Wardstone items have had a couple of very interesting changes here. Instead of being level locked, they are now locked behind you having completed a support quest. This means that you can get these items extremely early into the game if you so choose, but it does mean that Riot have rebalanced it to basically say this is supposed to be a gold sink. Because all your items are cheaper, if you hit full build early into a game, you can go for these items, which is basically just a way for you to spend all that excess gold that you have and load up on pinks at that point. These support changes seem less cut and dry than the other changes that I talked about, the AD carry and assassin changes. I do think that ultimately they're going to be a good way to help supports feel a little bit better about their build paths and give them some more satisfaction in terms of what they're doing and a few more tools to work with, but I don't think they're going to be a huge change like the marksman or assassin itemization changes were. I really feel like supports are still going to keep doing support things, they're just going to feel better about doing those support things. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about in this week's patch are the changes to trinkets. There are a couple of important things to highlight here. Farsight Alteration, for example, when it detects an enemy champion for the first time, will ping that champion, gain increased vision range, and then self-destruct after a brief period of time. This means that if you've seen the ward itself, when it sees you, you can still kill it and not worry about missing out on the gold. But it also means if you don't see it, it will kill itself. And then you'll never know that you are on a ward. Let's say, for example, there's a blue ward in the Pixel Brush, you walk by while you're doing Scuttle Crab, you don't notice that it spotted you, and then by the time you face check that bush, there's no ward in it. You'll never know that you were on a ward, but the enemy team saw you. And I think this will have a lot of very interesting implications for the game going forward, most notably of which is that there will be less vision overall, because once this gets you any value, it goes away forever instead of sticking around and providing vision forever. The other thing to talk about here is Oracle Lens, which will now have 2 charges on use. The charge-recharge time, of course, is much longer, but it does mean that you can have up to 12 seconds of Oracle's Lens and 2 charges, as opposed to the current system, which is 1 charge and a 10-second duration. Really big fan of these changes overall, especially for the Pro Circuit, because darker maps in Pro Play, which I think this is going to contribute to, Oracle's Lens being much more usable and the blue wards expiring, means that pros will have a lot less vision overall, which means that the games tend to get bloodier. But I think even in casual games, you'll notice a lot fewer wards, and that means that your support and the rest of the team will need to be coordinating a lot more to get vision down. And that is going to be it for me today, guys. This is a huge patch with a ton of things and a ton of moving parts, and I'm very excited to see it play out. But you guys should let me know what you're most excited for down in the comments section below. I am not sure about the marksman itemization changes, but I'm definitely interested to play around with them and see how they all feel. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days like today as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.